I have loved stroganoff since I was a kid, so today we're going to make it from scratch.
For today's recipe, you're going to need a 2.5 to 3 pound chuck roast cut into strips, salt and pepper to taste, olive oil, 2 tablespoons of butter, 1 medium onion sliced, 1 package, which is about 8 ounces of sliced button mushrooms. These are also called white mushrooms. You need 1.5 teaspoons of paprika, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, a half teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 2.5 cups of water, 3/4 to 1 cup of sour cream, depending on how much twang you like, a half cup of heavy cream, chopped chives for garnish, and my family loves this recipe served over egg noodles. Again, we want to get everything together, and we're going to start with our chuck roast. We want to rinse it and pat it dry, and we're going to be slicing this, and if you can slice it in thin strips, that really makes this even better. We're going to be using packaged sliced mushrooms, but you are welcome to slice your own, and it only takes a few ingredients, and it's going to make a delicious dinner. Now, lots of people don't rinse their mushrooms. I do. They've actually done studies that say that the mushrooms don't absorb extra water, and we're going to let these drain for a little bit, but I just like to give them a good rinse and make sure that all of that extra debris from when they were harvested is all rinsed away, and I'm just going to let these sit until I'm ready to add them to my recipe. Next, I'm going to chop the onion. I'm using a medium-sized onion, and you want to chop these into nice slices, but you want them a little bit thicker. You want there to be some onion left over after it cooks down. I'm just going to set these aside with my mushrooms till I'm ready to use them. Next, we're going to slice up our chuck roast, and normally I use my favorite knife. Everybody has one, but for this one, I'm going to use a brisket knife because I want to be able to slice this really thin, and it doesn't take much work to actually just slice right through this raw meat using a brisket knife. So I'm just going to slice all this up. I finished slicing up my roast and it has nice marbling, but notice I kind of let this big chunk of fat out. You want to carve off that extra little piece of meat, but there's plenty of marbling in the roast to give it great flavor. I've got my meat all sliced and I'm going to brown it in my trusty Cuisinart. I'm going to, again, put a little bit of olive oil in there, and I just want to kind of sear the edges. I don't want to cook this all the way through, but I'm going to drop my pieces in there and just let them kind of turn brown on both sides. Now, you'll want to add salt and pepper as you are cooking because the recipe actually calls for salt and pepper per taste. You will add more a little bit later on, but first let's go ahead and get this meat browned up. And while it's browning, just add a little pinch of salt and a few shakes of pepper. You know what your family likes, but it really will add to the flavor once this is completed. Once the meat starts browning, you do want to flip it over. You want to brown both sides, but really you don't want to cook it all the way through. And I'm going to do this with all of the meat. So after this batch is finished, I'll take it out and brown the rest of the meat. And then we will be ready to put the rest of our recipe together. This is the last part of our meat, and we've browned both sides. So now we're just going to take it out and put it on the side, and we're going to be ready to work with our vegetables. So our meat is brown, we're going to set it off to the side, and now we're just going to take a little bit more olive oil. You just want to put a light coat down on the bottom, and we're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. Real butter works best here. And we're going to saute our onions and mushrooms, and we're just going to dump these right in here. And then on top, we're going to add our garlic powder, paprika, and cayenne. I also want to add a couple pinches of salt. That will help the mushrooms to leach their liquid and cook a little faster. And just give these a little stir and let them saute. As the onions and mushrooms soften, they will take on the red color from the paprika and the cayenne. My onions and mushrooms are now nice and soft, and it's time to put the rest of these ingredients together. And I'm going to start by giving it a good stir, and then I'm going to add 2.5 cups of water. This is going to help make the sauce for our stroganoff. Just give it a good stir, and then we're going to add our beef back into the pot. And give it a good mix. I'm going to stick my lid on, allow this to come to a boil, and then I'm going to turn it down to simmer. Once it starts bubbling, I'm going to knock the temperature down to simmer for 2.5 hours. At this point, it's been simmering for about an hour, and you can start to see it's creating a very wonderful, rich, beefy broth. We've got about 15 minutes left on our cook time, so I just want to give it a good stir, and I want to taste it because I've been a little bit light on salt. You don't want to over salt it, but this definitely could use just a little bit more. Now, my family loves to eat stroganoff over egg noodles, so we like a little bit runnier sauce. But if you are going to eat this by itself, you may want to take the lid off, bump the heat up, and let it cook for about 15 minutes to reduce the amount of liquid. We bumped up the heat and we reduced our liquid a little bit. So now it's time to go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients. This is 1 cup of sour cream. Now, my family truly loves sour cream, so the more the better. And a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. You want to make sure you're using heavy cream because you want that thick, rich sauce. You just want to make sure that you stir this in well and get it all incorporated. If your sauce is still a little more runny than you would like it to be, just allow it to continue simmering and you will have an amazing sauce. This stroganoff is fantastic just on its own with maybe a salad, but my family likes to eat it over egg noodles with a little extra sour cream and fresh chives on top. This recipe is fantastic for lunch the next day. You can also freeze the meat and the sauce and warm it up for later. Now, I am a history teacher by trade, and this is one of my favorite little nerdy nuggets, but this is a photograph that my husband and I took of Stroganoff Palace in St. Petersburg a few years ago. Now, this is the location where the Stroganoff recipe actually originated. It began in the household of Count Pavel Stroganoff, and there was a great interest in everything French, including food. So this recipe was developed to kind of be a showstopper, to kind of top other people who were coming up with recipes as well. And it first appeared in a cookbook way back in 1871. I hope you enjoyed the modern version. If you liked today's recipe and you would like these to continue, please be sure to like, comment, and share. Thanks, guys.